In attendance then are, let me just do kind of a roll call if we could of board members. Mr. Zerflu, you're here, present, is that correct? Thank you. Mr. Orcutt.
Present.
Colonel.
Yes, sir, here.
And Lyman Chance, are you on, Lyman? He will be joining shortly from his house, and in the room live is Ms. Tammy Waters from Domtar, and is all the way from Arkansas. Welcome, Tammy. We appreciate that very much, and look forward to your contribution if you have some today. Are there public comments to be made? Anybody online, by the way?
Nobody online yet, no.
Okay. Would you care to make public comment of any kind, Tammy? It's on the agenda if you do.
Can I maybe later on, but right now I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome and excited to be here.
Yeah, very good. If you do want to make a public comment, kind of wave to me and I will press to notice you.
Thank you.
Number 3 item is the chairman's comment. I want to thank the board for the work that went into having the special meeting, and I appreciated the attendance was more than I thought. I lost the over under in terms of number of people there, so I am super glad I lost, which is something I've done maybe twice in my whole life. So anyway, thank you for that. I had 2 additions that I had intended to bring up at the meeting and I did not. One is to alert everybody that John Casey recently passed away. John has been a long-term member of the community. He's from the Alexander family, and we wanted to recognize him and so forth. And it was my oversight to not mention that on the 12th as well. The other oversight I had was in thanking people. Dave Dobner, who's a resident of the lake, also was very instrumental in putting together the petitions online and surveys, et cetera thing. And from a technology standpoint, it was extremely helpful to get that up and operating so that operationally we could generate petitions and mailing lists and so forth. So thank you to Dave Dobner. The next item, number 4, is to approve agenda item, approve minutes from the 15th May meeting. And can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from May 15th, June 5th, and June 5th, yeah, and June 15th.
Actually, it should be 12 June, sorry, it's typo. 15 May, 5 June, 12 June.
15 May,
15 May,
was this a typo again?
5 June, 12 June, yes, sir. Those things happen.
Maybe he never did that. My motion's as amended by the typist.
Noted that there was a friendly amendment to the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Orcutt. All those in favor of approving the agendas and minutes from the 15 May, 12 June, and 15 June. Is that right? No, 5 June and
12 June.
12 June, excuse me. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. I assume that's you, Lyman, that you're now joining us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The next item is we're 7 weeks away from the first annual meeting of the Lake District. And I think it's time to start looking at, or not start, but to continue to look at what the 2024 budget would look like. We know that it'll go through some other iterations and drafts between now and then, but I think an update on that would be valuable for anybody who is interested, as well as the board members. So as treasurer, Lyman, could you give us a kind of an update of what the 2024 budget draft looks like at this point?
It's been updated more than slightly, quite a bit. If you go back, the only budget that we ever really released was with the, there was an update in January of 2024. And we had a bunch of assumptions in there, and I've been working on updating 2024 in the background since, based on multiple items, including the loan. I would say it's probably something that needs a deep dive at one of our meetings, once we make a couple of decisions on particularly weed harvesting approaches. In the meeting, we just had a meeting prior to this that we call our Harvester Operations and Logistics Group. And it appears we will be renting a pickup truck and a trailer for 2024 for temporary weed harvesting. And if that works well, we would intend to purchase a pickup truck and a trailer for 2024. And that would affect the budget, because that would probably have to be a loan unless we find a way to continue to rent or lease a trailer and a pickup truck. That would be one, I would call it, that's probably the biggest change that I know of from the early updates, is the assumption that we would own a pickup truck and a trailer. Otherwise, it's more about just refining our estimates on how long and how much it costs to harvest. And we really won't be able to do that until we get some experience in 2023.
Well, thank you. Are there comments, questions, discussion of that?
Yeah.
Boss?
Hey, Lyman's Boz, can you off the top of your head know what our revenue and our total expenditures are? All I'm tracking right now is the 60K loan. But do you have an idea just for ballpark? Because we have no products in our packet that discusses 2024. So.
Yeah, we don't have a copy of the most recent budget to look at, Lyman.
That's because I haven't shared it, Dave. It's been kind of a working copy that I update as I learn new information. Order of magnitude, the operating expense next year is probably in the range of 80,000 total operating expense. Now, and when I say operating expense, there could be two loans that I don't count as part of operating expense that we would also, or the parcel owners would be billed for. One is the billing for the $60,000 loan that was just approved, and then tentatively a loan to buy a pickup truck and a trailer. So 80,000 plus the cost of two loans would be what parcel residents would see in 2024. I'm happy to provide some detail and send the latest update prior to our next meeting, and we could discuss the document at the next meeting, because we do need to obviously finalize that before our August 12th meeting. So
What's the big revenue number that you're tracking right now?
well, the revenue would equal whatever our expenses are, Bob. So if our operating expenses are 80,000, then the revenue would be 80,000. Then you're into how do we take our operating expense and divide it up into the parcels that are paying. But the revenue better equal the expense. Let me say that. There is no other source of revenue unless we get a donation.
All right.
I think that would be great if at the next meeting we could take your recommendation, Lyman, to have a draft, the next draft of the budget. I personally would like to just see see what options there are, a budget with a second loan, and what other options are there for the dispersal of weeds if a motion was not carried to or the parcel owners did not approve a second loan. So if we could do that, that would be really helpful.
I'll send a document out before our next meeting, Eric.
Thank you. Other discussion on the 2024 working draft of a budget for the first annual meeting.
I would just, again, make a statement that I compare this to what municipal governments do with their budgets. When we do loans, municipal loans, we bake in the payment back into the revenue calculated and expenditures. We do not have the luxury of additional taxing authority when it comes to loans. I totally understand the state statute gives districts that ability. I would hate that this district goes down a path from the get-go that every time we want to buy a big purchase item, we do a loan and then we send a separate bill to residents. We've talked this from the get-go. I know we can make the numbers work on the revenue side where we can embed the payment back of the loan into what the revenue is collected. But I would just hate that every year we're hitting our residents up with additional taxing bills, because there's a cost to that. We don't do it in the November timeframe of every year, and we find we have to do additional special meetings. The cost by the municipal governments to do a separate billing will hit us as an administrative cost. And that's something we don't need to go down that road. Let's just capture it all one time. Again, just a statement.
So, no, Boz, it's a good statement. Let me add to that. You know, the statute requires that if we get a loan, which in order for us to buy anything capital, we're going to, in the short term, going to have to get a loan because we don't have accumulated funds, that the loan has to be approved by the district members. Now we can do it at the annual meeting. And our intent, which needs further discussion as a board and also needs approval of the residents, is that we could pay back the loan through special charges. And so if we do it through special charges, there would not be a separate line item for loans on people's tax bills. Special charges would there would be one special charge per lot in our budget. We need to agree to that as a board, however, and we need the parcel owners to approve that as well. But that is a path forward that a lake district can pursue. So we do not have to have separate loans show up on people's tax bills. But we have work to do to make that happen, to be clear.
So point of order, I think we need to spend a little more time reading the code, because there's a difference between paying back the financing from a loan and special assessments and special charges for the normal fees to operate the Lake District. So the power of finance is covered under 33.31. Power of special assessment is under 33.32. And I don't know that we've necessarily had a lawyer look at this yet, but as I read this, the loans have to be paid back based on a tax that's an irrepealable tax, pay the principal and interest of the indebtedness incurred. And the district has to levy that tax without limitation as a rate or amount on all taxable property. So I don't see anywhere in there where it says we can change that to a special assessment. We can use a special assessment for generating funds for the other operations of the Lake District, but not for loans.
So Dave, we can go talk to a lawyer if you want, but we have the ability to pay back the loan through special charges. And we can either talk that offline and, but we've been advised by both the attorney, Brian Formala, and by Eric Olson that it is our option. If we choose to pay back a loan using special charges, we need a vote of the district members, but we can pay it back that way. We can pay back because it is operating expense. We can pay it back that way.
Who is Brian?
He's the lawyer we hired just for the district.
Okay.
Yeah, so all he does is district stuff.
So do we have a copy of his opinion, or?
We do,
Okay.
yes, yeah, and it bears more discussion at the next meeting. I'm
Yes.
with you.
Yeah, so I think a lot more to come on that, and I'm really glad we brought it up today because it will get all of our minds thinking about the budget, how to what charges would look like, and what options we have if we need to acquire some equipment in next year, and we need to look at all options on that, including what gifts or grants or whatever might be available, as well as charging residents for that. So I appreciate letting you bring that to the next meeting, and that'll be an item that we'll dig in with some concrete detail. Thank you. Number 6 is a potential motion to approve the parcel classification definitions. I think in your packet, there is a draft of the parcel classifications and definitions. I'm also, and I think that last meeting, I had asked Dave, you and Lyman to have conversations about that, to bring that forward. I saw an email, Dave, that you put out today or yesterday, I think yesterday, saying that you wanted to have your proposed draft discussed as well. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I think, I had proposed some language to Lyman. He sent his draft back. There's enough difference between the two and the email that Lyman sent me, rather than sit here, do this back and forth in email, we should just bring it up to the board. So wanted to make sure that we had both documents so that all the information from both ideas is present, so we can decide what to include out of the two of them and generate one, rather than just voting on one versus the other. I think there's value in both of them, but I think there's probably missing pieces in both of them.
So the only, in your packet, you have what I'll call number 2 that Lyman sent is the one with a longer first paragraph.
Yep.
That's the only thing I can tell you is different. Oh, there's other differences. The initial one that we had members working on is the one that has a very short intro, but a lot more clarity and exempt. So there's your 2 documents that you can compare, and that's what Dave asked for, so that's why they're in there, and we can have our discussion.
So maybe let me start quick with one comment. The parcel definitions that we're talking about only apply in the situation where we're using special charges to allocate costs to parcel owners in the district. If we are charging parcel owners based on a tax levy, the tax levy must be applied to all parcels in the district, and there can't be separate classifications. The same tax rate has to get charged to all parcels. Since our intent from the beginning has been to use more or less a flat rate by parcel type, we expect to use this definition for special charges, just to be clear. But I wanted to add it to this document so that everybody's reminded of that. Again, a tax levy is a mill rate. The same mill rate gets a charge to everybody. Special charges, we have the ability to allocate different charges to different parcel types as defined here. Just as a point of clarification, that's why that paragraph was added at the beginning.
Okay.
Is that clear to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, a point of order from me, and I'm going to ask the Robert's Rules of Order, Mr. Zerflu, could we be discussing this before a motion is made? How can that be? What's the best way to handle this?
You plan on making a motion?
I would like to have that happen today.
Then we are bound by first, second, then you call for discussion. All right, boss?
No, you're good.
Okay. So who wants to make a motion?
I can make the motion that we review and approve definitions based on our outcome of our discussion.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, a motion by Dave Orcott, second by Colonel Bowser, that we review the 2 documents, have a discussion about them, and come up with a final set of parcel classification definitions. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Oh,
No,
discussion.
discussion.
Oh, excuse me, discussion first. All right. So I would like to have both, Dave, why don't you explain kind of what you see are the are the key characteristics of the document you have, and then I'm gonna ask you to do the same and see what's different about the two.
So the key difference is, let me start by saying the document that Lyman put together, that first paragraph does have a great deal of clarity. So I think, that's a very good thing to keep going forward.
Just as a point of order, could the chair number them one or two?
Yeah.
Be easier to refer.
Thank you. I think you had said.
Yeah, so the short one is 1.
Okay,
The short top paragraph, let's call that number 1. The long top paragraph is number 2.
thanks, Dave.
Thank you. So when I look at document number 2, the introductory paragraph brings a lot of detail that I think is of value having in the document going forward. The key differences truly come when you get to the definition of exempt. And I think we're putting forth a document that not only serves this board, but serves future boards. I think the more detail we provide as boundaries or what the thought process was when these definitions were created adds value. If we leave things open to our memory and we're no longer here, I'm afraid that we will miss certain aspects of the definitions we were looking at when we leave it open to interpretation. So I think there's value in identifying properties that are owned by not-for-profit organizations, which is something that was in the original suggestion. I think there's value in that, because I think that's something we want to retain going forward as a district. I think that we need to take a serious look at properties that are fully submerged, regardless of who the ownership is, because a submerged property gains very little, if any, benefit from the Lake District. People who own a submerged property don't take benefit from weed harvesting, don't take benefit from any of the other things that the board is looking to do. So really challenge myself, regardless of the owner, who benefits from something like that, why should they be charged a special assessment? They'll be charged with as any other taxable property under 3331. I think the property with the outlots remains in both in kind. And I think we need a little bit more definition around the memorandums of understanding. I think there's probably clarity in document number 2 that reflects what needs to happen there. Just trying to add clarity in document number 1 to say that anything that was prior to this board is not necessarily a given. Or for that matter, any other government agency that comes in and says, we signed a memorandum of understanding on behalf of the Lake District, it doesn't mean that it's automatically enforced. So just trying to add more clarity in what was prepared in document number 1.
So if I followed you right, item 2 is provide that.
Item 2 says if there's something in chapter 33 that's exempt, it's automatically exempt. It just calls out chapter 33. Item 1 provides more detail of if someone decides to establish a memorandum of understanding. And I'm also trying to figure out how we make that a record that stays with the definition so that we're not scratching trying to find it 10 years down the road. Say the village of Grand Rapids, for whatever reason, decides to have a memorandum of understanding with some properties currently within the district. That doesn't mean it's enforced unless this board agrees to it. And probably cleaner if we have our own memorandum of understanding than reflect on anything that was signed in the past.
So it's safe to say that item number 2, the intro paragraph, what we like, improved and not improved or not in discussion. We agreed to that language.
Yes,
It's really going straight to the exempt.
correct.
And the preference would be to be more descriptive, like item 1, the bottom of item 1.
Correct, because I think in the long term, I think that
Agree. That's not an issue. What I would change right off the bat, though, it should be a memorandum of agreement, not understanding. Agreement is more final.
Yeah.
So we need to change that language because that's what they are. But totally open to discussing the rest of the exempt categories because I think there's nothing new there. Unless you correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else? Those are the areas that would be exempt.
So I don't know at what point we want to talk about, you want me to talk a little bit about document 2 and then we can talk about both of them?
Yes, please.
So one minor comment, Dave. I don't ever recall that we said nonprofits would not be charged a fee. The fact that it is a nonprofit, there's still benefits from the lake that are derived. The only significant nonprofit is the YMCA that I'm aware of, and the YMCA approved of the petition and has more or less agreed to pay a fee for the lake for what it's worth. So I don't know where you got the impression that we would not charge nonprofits. We'll come back to that one. What I tried to do in the second version of this thing, again, let's focus on exempt. The opening paragraph was just clarification that this applies to where it's special charges, as I stated earlier. And my thought process was that, hey, all parcels are subject to charges unless there's one of three simple situations. One is we can't charge them by state statute, and that would be the county park is the best example of that, or there's the parcel owned by Saratoga as well. We can't charge one government agency can't charge another government agency unless there's some agreement for cross charges. Anyhow, that would be one condition. The second condition is the outlot situation. That's very unique to our lake. There's only a handful of lots that applies to. And then the third is, my intent was to keep a simple, broad definition of either memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement that said, hey, you get exemption only by having a memorandum of agreement. And that memorandum of agreement has to define the benefit that the Lake Districts gets through that memorandum. And that memorandum of agreement has to be approved by the board. And when that situation has happened, then the parcel would become exempt. And so that allows us to broadly interpret, is there a benefit to the Lake District? And is there a written agreement on it? And the agreement would be between the parcel owner and the Lake District, not the parcel owner and a municipality, not the parcel owner and somebody else. It would be between the parcel owner and the Lake District. And it would be limited to those situations. There's a benefit that was defined. The board believes that the benefit is worthy of exempting the property. That memorandum is approved by the board, and then we give that parcel exempt status. So that to me keeps it simple, as opposed to trying to outline every specific example, and allows the board on an ongoing basis in the future to say, is there a benefit? Do we have an agreement? Do we think it's worth it? And the board is allowed to approve it on an ongoing basis. So it's a little bit the reverse of trying to delineate every single example. It's broadly, is there a benefit? Was it approved by the board? Do we agree to make it exempt? And I will also add, by the way, I think all parcel classifications should be reviewed and approved annually by the board. It's not like you approve it once and it's done. No, they should all be revisited and approved each year. Whether we need an updated memorandum of agreement each year, we'd have to decide that as a board. We could, by the way, or renew it annually if we so choose, just to validate that there was an ongoing benefit being derived. Anyhow, that was the thought behind trying to simplify it. And comments and questions we should continue to discuss.
I think the not-for-profit is what was on the original draft that was provided to you and me. That's where that came from. So someone prior to the discussion provided that as something that had apparently been thought about.
I don't recall that, Dave, but okay. Maybe you recall.
I can produce it for you.
I'm sure you can. I'm saying from the beginning, we've always assumed that the Y was going to pay.
Covered out on.
And they have beach
Here's an MOA.
frontage.
But is there an MOA between this board? And, you know, who's the MOA with regard to? YCAP,
There is none,
right,
nor was ever one floated to the White Camp. So
right, so,
I think everyone, what I'm hearing is that we're fine with one, we're fine with two, I'm talking the example.
yep,
We're fine with three. I understand Lyman's point, but I'd rather be very descriptive there rather than generic. We're fine keeping three. We want to strike four because if that ever does happen, you refer back to one.
Yep.
You keep five and you keep six. So we use the language of number 2 document. First 3 paragraphs are good.
Yep.
And we refine the exempt paragraph here, striking basically 4 and changing MOU to MOA. And I think that's an acceptable document.
Sorry, Boz, I don't have it in front of me. What's 4?
4 is the YMCA, to strike that, and if that ever does happen, it becomes refer to 1.
Yeah. So you're saying leave the specific examples in and add the general example that there should be a memorandum of agreement?
Yeah, I would
Do
leave it.
both?
You could, it's grammatics here, you could say under properties, or under number 2, properties considered exempt by state statute, and then you do a sub paragraph, county and Saratoga. But I just be very specific, what's wrong with that? Doesn't harm to have it, it's still a one-page document, keeps it simple, so.
Joe, do you have some thoughts at this point, or shall I go ahead?
Well, so basically we're headed toward the hybrid
Oh, yeah, there'll be a
Mhm.
version 3, sure.
Yep.
and get rid of, item 4. I'm looking at 2, one is in my right hand. That is gone, and we're just basically gonna take items 5 and 6 from 1, add them over on 2.
There's one more there, number 3 comes over. The one that says specifically Wood County and Saratoga, it doesn't say Saratoga, it needs to.
Yeah.
So we just keep that.
I just said Wood County or other municipal.
Yes, we specifically say Saratoga because that's the only ones that own property on the lake right now, so.
At this point, my one question would be, which of these 2 resembles what our finished product should be?
Closer, the 2 is, or 1 is closer to the finished product. Once we strike 1, really, you're gonna add a bunch of stuff in the beginning. That top part,
We're basically gonna,
and then you're gonna
Here,
strike 1
here.
bullet. Number
Yep.
4 gets stricken. And then there's your new product. So,
Well, I'd like to weigh in as well, but I want you.
I really hate to say this, I'm going out on a limb, but I agree with the Army man and with, the Grand Rapids firefighter, so.
Chair.
So I have a
Sorry,
question.
Boz.
I have a couple of questions. Why does it need to say as listed by requirements by chapter 33 multiple times in the same document? It seems to me that that's covered one time, everything else in it is, and it just seems very repetitive and redundant to me, 1. 2, I would, I would strike listing in a parent form, any government agencies. There might be some government agencies that come up later, whatever, that's just not needed. To me, the whole idea of it seemed obvious to me that that the board, simply just saying that the board has to approve any memorandum of understanding, period. That's a 1-sentence thing, not this whole 6 or 7 lines of stuff. Just let's just say that. That's my opinion. The second thing, and Dave, please take this with respect. You said about and we have to talk about the lots, the parcels underwater, but you are an employee of Domtar, and they're the only people that own lots that are underwater, correct?
I don't know that for sure. Currently, yes. To my knowledge, there could be others.
There's actually only one HOA, that brown spot down there, look on your map, it's owned by the HOA and it's all underwater. I don't know what you call that little lake down there, that little inlet. So, That's the only one that I'm aware of, that brown area there.
Mhm.
So the HOA owns that, not Domtar, and it's submerged.
So my take on that is, and I'm certainly open to that as a final solution. But I'd rather take Domtar as a entire entity and deal with some possibilities there of some other arrangements, memorandums of agreement that would include this piece as opposed to separating out just the underwater ones and not deal with the other ones. I think we could simplify that process with Domtar if we did the two at the same time.
With
Eric, could I add a point? Sorry, let me jump in, guys. It's hard not to be there. I'll remind everybody there are two parcels that are partially underwater. One of the two is that parcel that Boz referred to. It's owned by the legal entity is called Septagon. And that is underwater and dry land. And at least one or two of the Domtar parcels are both underwater and dry land. And you have to look at the parcels pretty hard. But I think the two for Domtar are over by the dam. And then that Septagon one is kind of on South Shore on the west side of the lake. So we have to be careful. Maybe it would have to say completely submerged, or I don't know what it says.
That's what it does.
Anyhow,
say
just
is-
adding that.
That's what it says, is completely submerged. And when I wrote that, I was trying to be cognitive of the fact that I'm a board member as well as being an employee of Domtar. And I was trying to look at something that was generic enough to not draw the line that said, I'm looking after Domtar. I was looking at anything that's underwater, truly does not benefit from our activities. So if we want to enter, if Tammy wants to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the lake board on the other properties, that's between the board and Domtar. So at this point, I was looking at properties that are completely submerged, that our activities are not going to benefit. So I challenge the board, does it make sense to apply a fee to a property that takes no benefit from our activity?
Okay, so my point, and again, I'm not opposed to the idea of exempting those, but to say that they won't have any benefit to me is debatable. If proper care is taken in terms of how the lake is managed, there'll be less muck on the property that Domtar owns, which will actually benefit the quality of the lake bottom as well. And again, it's a small matter, but I want to be clear why we're doing it. And again, I'm not opposed to the idea. I just think we got to look at, are we going to do this are we going to separate out and do it by piece? Or are we going to do one agreement with Domtar? That's my question.
One other point I'd like to add, Eric, is I think we have to be careful with the language related to doesn't benefit from the Lake District. We may have residents that say, well, I don't benefit, I don't use the lake, I don't get a benefit, so I shouldn't pay. It's not whether you get a benefit or not, it's whether you have the possibility to have a benefit of it. And I think we got to be a little careful with whatever language we use there, because clearly we may have some parcel owners that would say, well, I'm not going to use the lake, I just look at it and that's not a benefit and I don't want to pay. And we have to be just careful that whatever language doesn't allow somebody to go down that road.
So let me add one other point. And I want to say this carefully. The memorandum of agreement we have right now, there are many people, there are some people on the lake who talk to me and don't want any agreements with the developers. Okay, and knowing that, we've been asking them to accept the fact that we are unable to rectify previous grievances or whatever. And that we were doing what was best for the district by providing an opportunity, given what the developers were going to offer the Lake District in kind. And I have I want to make sure that with when we talk about what we're doing with Domtar, to continue to be partners with them. If we want to separate it, I guess that's okay. Maybe I'm making a claim, though. We really need to have that talk about what else we want to do with the other properties, with Domtar in a joint discussion and effort to come to some agreement about that. That would be, frankly, that I can sell, that we can sell to the rest of the parcel owners.
Okay, you know,
Does
point,
that make sense, or?
it does. But as of right now, we don't have a memorandum of agreement with anybody as a Lake District.
That's correct.
So we still need to establish one with the developers, if that's the decision the board wants to do. And there's still other properties there that I don't know that the number of properties changes whether or not you can negotiate a memorandum of agreement with Domtar. But that's something that I don't feel in my role as a board member, I can negotiate that. I don't think that would be appropriate. I think that's something that the board needs to approach Tammy or Jason on what our desires are. I can't be part of that negotiation because I'm appointed to the board.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can advocate it in the board meeting. That's a challenge for me. You can advocate it for here, but you can't advocate for anything
Not,
back at your place of work. So that's confusing
I
to me.
didn't say I couldn't advocate. What I'm saying is I'm trying to draw a line here between the two, which is a difficult tightrope to walk. Because I don't want someone to come back and say, well, I did this for the benefit of Domtar because I was sitting on the board. And I'm trying not to do that.
Okay. There's an optic there that we'll have to just keep working on. So I've said my piece about that. And by the way, just with the developers agreement, just saying, if we don't agree to that, the whole thing gets blown up. The whole thing gets blown up. So just be aware of that.
Understood, but we need to agree to it.
And I'm totally in favor of that.
So
Totally in favor of that. I just don't think we need all that wording to get there. It seems like very redundant wording to me.
to Lyman's point, if we take number 5 and we strike from Mark at the end of high water mark, it probably does make sense so that it doesn't pull in the benefit question for other pieces.
Say that again.
Item 5 on page 1, on number 1. Stop item 5 at the end of high water mark, period, and take the rest of it off. Because then you're not drawing a benefit question into play.
That's a win-win.
That would be helpful.
No, why we're having this discussion is to try and come up with something that. And then I think what I heard Lyman say was on 3, one of you made the statement, you know, just change properties owned by government agencies or government entities. And strike it at that. For government or municipal entities, rather than defining Wood County, Saratoga, et cetera.
Or just use the words not taxable.
But we can tax I tax other
Right.
government entities. I need that, we've gone down a road that there's very specific exemptions right now. Saratoga, a little sliver of a park, and the county park. And with county, we're getting a benefit for that strike. Saratoga, that's worthless, nothing personal, but we can't. So I think we need to be very specific, because there will be a point in time that if the county expands or the village buys something, that it could be a taxable, non-exempt entity, because we're allowed to tax other government entities. I tax the federal government right across the street here for a post office. They pay me property taxes. So I prefer not to have that language, but if we do have the language, properties owned by Wood County, I can even put parcel numbers in there if you really want. Owned by Wood County and Saratoga.
Trying not to get that specific, because I don't want to draw to a parcel. I'm trying to have a general term that.
I think we just highlight the 2 government entities that actually we're dealing with right now. Because if this thing's looked at every year, then there's a way that it can be tweaked as the years go on. But we have a start point that's very specific when it comes to those 2 entities. If If you wanna leave other municipal entities, you can leave it in there. It just opens up a.
Hey,
I
hey,
prefer-
Boz, I'm not trying to debate with what you just said, but, the word taxable gets confusing. And this was a discussion that I had with Brian Formala. There is taxable in regard to property taxes. And typically a government-owned parcel of land does not pay property taxes. Okay? And if I'm wrong on that, you should correct me, but I'm pretty sure they don't pay property taxes. They could pay a Lake District fee, although I believe there's something in the statute on lake districts that you cannot levy a tax. You can't levy a tax against a parcel that is not taxable in terms of property taxes. Okay? We could probably do a special charge, and I'm not sure that would be precluded.
We can't assess.
So,
and then-
sorry, the word taxable gets confusing.
It's a good
Taxable
point.
on property taxes, chargeable from the Lake District. Sorry, I'll be quiet.
So, yes, we don't get property taxes on the government buildings in here, but we do assessments on the school, on the post office for things. That's allowed. There's no exemptions there. So, yeah, I stand corrected. I apologize how I explained that.
Okay, so is there further discussion? Because I was gonna ask, could we summarize where we think we are at this point? And by the way,
Boz has got a working document, I think.
do you have anything? Tammy, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I mean, I think that y'all done a great job of compromising and pulling all the elements in together. It sounds like y'all are headed in a good direction. As far as the Domtar piece, I mean, that's why I'm here. I mean, Jason couldn't be here today, but you said you referenced feeling like there could be important staff and agreement moving forward with Domtar, and what those elements look like. I don't know if we can sidebar that at the right time, but we
Sure.
definitely would like to have that conversation for sure.
Yeah, we probably could. Maybe there's a verbal understanding that needs to be done.
Right.
If we go ahead with including this as part of the classifications, that could work.
But again, there's definitely our legal would have to, anytime we do an agreement, as you know, we'd have to talk with
Oh,
our
sure.
legal folks and all anyway, so. And there's other, I'm looking at the agenda, I might have another question that could be incorporated in, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay,
And Lyman, are you on the screen or are you just on the phone?
I'm just on the phone, I'm sorry.
So we're gonna present something for the guys in the room. I just tweaked the product, so this will be version 3. So I left the first paragraph alone.
That'd be the first paragraph that you provided, Lyman.
Yep. I left improved and unimproved, not improved alone. Changed some language in red for exempt. So we did change it to MOA. Make that red, I apologize. It said 3, now we're more than 3, so below criteria. We left that alone. Y'all can look at that. That needs some tweaking there. I left, anything by state statute, chapter 33, that's a no-brainer. I left owned by Wood County, Saratoga, and other municipalities, I left that alone. I just said completely submerged below the normal high water mark, stop. We left the outlot paragraph alone, that's it.
Can I make one friendly amendment on the outlots?
Okay.
It says, but function both lots as treated as one lot. There may be more than 2.
Okay.
And both is 2, so just take the word both out.
Function multiple lots.
Lots are treated as one lot.
Multiple lots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
multiple lots.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay, multiple lots are treated as one lot, got it? Are we good on 5? So we're good on 5 for the consensus here in the room. We're good on 4. We removed a lot of stuff. We just said completely submerged.
Yep.
We're good on properties owned by Wood County, Saratoga, or other municipal entities for establishing parks and other public access. This is a generic, this should really start it off, anything exempt by chapter 33, so we can move that around.
You can make that 1 and make 1, 2.
And then this is basically identified in a memorandum of agreement, agreed to and approved by the majority of the Lake District Board. These exemptions may be allowed, provided meet requirements of that. Exemptions, I think that's kind of wording, so.
Yeah, so again, my thing is like, doesn't what one says assume, or it doesn't assume, it's, to me, it says it all. I'm not sure what's the add to A that isn't said in the wording of point one.
I think what A does, making future boards. We're not here, someone walks into the board meeting and says, we've already got this memorandum of agreement with the village of Saratoga.
Yeah.
So you need to follow this. And what that does is it calls out and says, no, we don't. So it just makes that very clear that these other, because I've seen this happen in other instances where people think that because they have a memorandum of agreement with a local village, with a local township, with a county, that it's applicable to all functions therein, and it's not necessarily the case. So it just adds clarity that for purposes of this, it truly must be approved by the board, that because they have something with Grand Rapids or they have something with Saratoga, it is not automatically approved. That's the only purpose it serves, Eric.
So could we take out the parent, Wood County, city, village, or township boards? And the reason why, it feels like it's taking a shot at them.
No, I'm fine with that.
You know, I
We'll
mean.
just leave it open as other government, other,
entities, stop.
Yeah,
Are there any ballots up to improve by are only valid if, so just leave that as well?
yeah, you can leave
Yep.
that.
Get rid of this.
get rid of the parenthetical. No, that's fine.
Alright, so exemptions, within Lake District, MOAs previously established between individuals are only valid if subsequently approved by the Lake District Board. So it's basically referring back to one.
Well,
Only thing it's enacted, only approved MOAs, or this body approves them.
yeah, I thought that's what one said.
It does, but we do have we have 3 resolutions that are out there that got us to this point. That while I'm not in agreement with this board, there's an expectation by Saratoga, Grand Rapids, and the village that certain parcels would be exempt
There's,
to
you know,
get it to you.
to the comment you made earlier about people coming to you and saying they're not happy with the memorandum of agreement with the developer. They would assume, and are assuming, that the board has to follow those. So this adds clarity that,
I'm not sure that isn't the issue. That has to do with grievances with.
I understand that, but they're,
I think that last, A basically will die on its own in 1 or 2 years after this board starts approving the MOAs.
Okay,
Then it's a moot point.
okay,
But I think for this first interim year and inaugural year, we probably need it in there till we bleed out the resolutions.
so is not having that, not having voted on that MOA with the developers, does that stop everything in its tracks?
No, because that could be brought to this body next month before the annual meeting, and then this gets approved, so I would err that this motion doesn't, we accept the consensus of this language, we clean it up officially and we represent it. But we gotta get on the agenda next month very quickly, the MOA that we have, that we know is coming with the developer, which we have done, we have the draft language and the legal review of that language.
Okay,
So
so yeah, that needs to happen at the next.
We can bring it very quickly.
So question, is your belief that parcel owners vote on these?
No, that's the board.
board votes on it.
Just the board?
Board is determining how we make our 3 categories.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, and then in August, you're gonna put a numerical by 2 of those. That is gonna be for citizen vote. But the categories is our vote.
excuse me, they're voting on the memorandum of agreement?
No, the numerical that we're gonna assign to the percentage that you pay.
What's the value of each percentage based on the category?
If we're gonna charge $500 for an improved lot, that's the decision
Okay,
for the
peace,
citizens.
peace.
Yeah, it's not the categories, we decide that.
Okay,
We've now refined the categories to 3 and 2, you're gonna pay
and
something.
now those can those can inform
Now in August, we're
what
gonna
the
say,
fees are for.
yes,
the-
right,
yes, that's all.
Sorry, it took me a little while to get
No,
there,
it's okay.
but appreciate your patience.
So we're good with this, that's corrected, and I'll resubmit this to the
And
body.
don't forget the footnote on the bottom that, defines that one there. Yep. That doesn't change, just make sure
Yeah,
that it's.
okay, no, I got you, I'll get it all on one page, got it, yep,
So this is your first goal that we're looking at of the hybrid.
that's it, so we'll clean it up and present it the next meeting for the motion. And in conjunction.
So do we table the vote?
What? Yeah, whoever made the motion can withdraw the motion. Or we just vote it and it dies until next time.
I made the motion.
Yeah, so if you withdraw, we've had our discussion,
Didn't you second?
I second it,
Yeah.
we can withdraw it,
Mm-hmm.
re-present it next month or
Okay.
next meeting. and take it.
That's
Alright,
the cleanest way. I'll withdraw the motion.
Yeah.
Boz withdraws his second.
yes, I withdraw it. I'm fine.
Is there any way you could, or you may not want to, print off the hybrid, just so we got an idea what's might be coming for next month, just for the guys that are here in
I'm
Lyman?
gonna do it across the street there, let's see if this
Uh-oh.
high technology works.
You lost me when you moved that little cursor thing up there.
He's printing it. It's going somewhere across the
Going
street.
somewhere.
I'm not sure
Somebody-
where.
It's going to somebody's desk, I'll find out right now.
Thank you, Colonel.
It just showed up on the police chief's desk. Yeah. He's going, what in the world?
So can we move on while he's doing that, or do you want to wait?
Eric, I'd like to add a comment. I believe we should consider, and I don't know if we do it in the meeting now or if we do it separately, asking for any public comments on what we're doing here. Because certainly what we're doing, while we're allowed to do it by statute, we don't want to be perceived that there's a bunch of us huddled around and treating these exempt parcels in a favoritive manner because of whatever. I think some public comment on this would be advisable, is my suggestion. I don't know how to do that. Maybe, I don't think we have a lot of people from the public on today's meeting.
I personally, Lyman, I just think, they'll have their chance for public comment when this is presented next month at our next meeting.
Right?
Yeah, we'll invite
Okay.
people. Yeah, let's do that. We'll invite people particularly to join in on Zoom or in attendance.
Otherwise, well, they're,
Thank you.
to officially agree or protest or anything else, it should be done in the meeting, my feeling,
Right.
not just, coffee clutch.
A selected,
No.
non-statistically significant sample.
That, I think that's fair. I think when we publish the minutes, we should be clear we're looking for public comment, input, and then review it at the next meeting. I'm fine with that. Thanks, whoever suggested that, Joe.
It was Boz, he is out of the room. We spoke in his name.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the vigorous discussion, and we got to, I think, a good point with that. Let's move to A, old business, discussion of weed harvesting operation for 2023. That could be very short, just quick update. Lyman, do you want to do that?
I'm sorry, Eric, you broke up there.
The old business, one of the bullet points is a brief discussion of the weed harvesting operations for 2023. What's the status of that?
Again, we had a meeting an hour before this meeting started, which Eric and Boz were both in. So really for Joe and Dave and the others in the room, I guess as short as I can summarize it, the critical path is to complete the agreement with the Pavlovskis on the donation, or I guess it won't be a donation, allowing us to use the equipment through some sort of a free or no cost rental lease agreement, followed by repairing the machines tentatively next week if the agreement is resolved by then. We would intend to rent the truck. We would intend to rent a trailer for the summer. A minor point, we need a final approval from Wisconsin Rapids compost site to drop weeds there. I think we can drop them. The question is the volume that will be accepted there, at least in 2023, and hire an operator as soon as we have a date when all of that is resolved. Likely, again, best case, probably 2 weeks from today. So we have a chance to begin weed harvesting operations on or about the 4th of July, plus or minus. And we definitely have enough money in the budget. When I say the budget, when we approved the loan for $60,000 and the document that was approved associated with the use of the funds for the loan, there's no risk that the loan won't cover our current estimated expenses. So probably the biggest item to complete is just to get the agreement with the Pavlovskis to allow us to use the machines and allow us to repair them. But on track, and I'm sure we will get additional citizen input once that begins, but I think that's part of the process. It's expected to be a learning experience this summer. And I'll remind everybody this, we're calling it trial weed harvesting. This is not meant to be a full year of weed harvesting. It's meant to learn, understand how to operate the machines, understand where we can cut weeds and where we can't, see how long it takes, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're on track, but there's a lot to be done before we're going to cut weeds the first time in a couple of weeks here.
Thank you. Questions on that update? Hearing none, the next old business is loan origination status, and Lemon, you could give us an update on that, please.
Yep, I reached out to Mary Sigler at Port Edwards and Coosa Bank, gave her a bit of background on the loan and the district. She was kind of unaware of it. They're in the process of processing the loan, and I expect to hear from Mary any day on here's the documents we need to close the loan. And I believe the loan can be closed within 10 days. So they're in a good spot and happy to help us. And I think, I don't think we didn't need to discuss it in the meeting, but I'm going to verify when the loan is approved. I believe we agreed in a prior meeting that the chairman and treasurer could approve that. That's Eric and myself. And the intent is when we have approval for the loan that we would approve the loan. And then the question is when we begin making draws on the loan. At this point, we only have some minor expenses. We don't have any big expenses. We have maybe $1,000 in expenses, miscellaneous stuff to pay out at this point, and none of that is urgent. So again, we should sign off at it here in the next 10 days, and then it's a matter of drawing funds as needed to pay any bills that we get.
Okay, good. Questions or comments about the loan status? Hearing none, brief update on the Wood County Economic Development Grant and the DNR Surface Water Grant. So I did pick up the information about the Wood County Economic Development Grant. That grant is very heavily focused on activities to generate employment in the area. However, there is a section on recreational capabilities of Wood County, as well as health and well-being kind of pieces. I think that's where I'm starting to draft our grant proposal is along those two lines, with an understanding that the more recreational use obviously will generate some economic value as well. So I hope to have a draft of that done here within the next week. And there's a July timeline, so it has to be done by then. The DNR Surface Water Grant, as I mentioned last time, is the recommendation from the DNR was that we apply for a grant. I think it's up to $10,000 for a strategic planning, lake planning, that will fit nicely once as we get the aquatic plant survey and lake management plan recommendations from our person who is going to do that as well. Thoughts or questions on that?
Do you know what when she plans to start doing the lake management plan?
Yes, early August is the timeline for that. right around the same time that we'll be holding, a little bit before, right around the time we'll be holding our annual meeting.
But that still gives us enough time to get it done in time for next year, correct?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Okay,
The entire thing will be done by September, and then there's an offer to hold a meeting with residents and interested parties about the findings of that, an explanation about that, Q&A, et cetera, as part of the services provided.
Eric, sorry, I'm gonna issue a slight correction to what you said. The weeds survey starts in August. The lake management plan may not be completed until February, just to be clear. And we're not required to have it done before February, by the way. We just need it done prior to requesting a permit in 2024.
right.
That's the latest timing from Sarah that she gave me. I issued the order to Sarah, signed the order to Sarah to authorize the work once the loan was approved. And
I
that was
see.
the timing she gave me.
Yeah, we've got a copy of that here.
I have to stand corrected, that study would be done, but not the grant. Any other comments about that? The last one on old business, parcel confirmation to registrar of deeds, update on that and completion of that. Lyman, do you wanna, just acknowledge that that's been done and we have the.
Yep, the resolution and the parcels were recorded. We have a paper copy of it. We have an electronic copy of it. I think everybody got sent the electronic copy, and let's call that done deal. And as a reminder, our intent is to sit down with the Register of Deeds once a quarter and review changes to the district as parcels are divided and sold and et cetera. But that one's done finally. Took a long time.
Good. Any other thoughts on questions on that? Hearing none, I see that I missed new business, and there is a motion that to approve a required legal notice, local notice of a bid for the aquatic plant study and lake planning services. And that's a very simple process. Paz, you want to explain what that would be?
Just because of the amount for the cost, we have to put it in the paper. It'll go in the paper this week. Obviously today's federal holiday, so we delayed it a bit. Probably about a $50-$60 charge that the paper does for us. So you'll get the bill later. But then once we get the RFPs, the request for proposals back, then we're able to meet the requirements for the lake study that we've got more than one bid, if we get any at all. So
Yeah, thank you very much.
So quick question on that. So we've already signed the agreement with the person to do it, but we don't have the other bids, so.
Dave, the agreement was signed with a contingency and it was discussed with Sarah. It was contingent on two items. One was us being approved on the loan, and two was contingent upon us receiving competitive bids and her remaining the lowest bid. That was part of the document that was signed and given to her.
Well, want to get it on the record for the minutes.
So is there a motion to approve placing a local notice for the aquatic plant study and lake planning?
So moved.
Dave Workott,
Second.
moved, second by Boz. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
all right,
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Just a little side note there. That's a heck of a way, Lyman, to get your name in the minutes. Okay. Item, actually, it's 9 now. To approve of bills and Lyman, you added some, I think, yesterday evening or whatever. Now we're back with the same kind of comment I had at the last meeting of like, are we really, how do I want to say this? How appropriate is it, or how fiduciarily responsible is it to approve, having a motion to approve these without having any money in the
I'll refer you to the guy that's able to nifty go around some of that stuff. I just go by the rule.
What is the rule?
He's the pro.
What is the rule?
Technically, they have to be part of the postage, right? Well,
yeah, the preference is that we have a motion that we approve the bills once funds are received, because otherwise this list just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it looks like we're not doing our fiduciary responsibilities.
I got it.
So I would make a motion to strike the Jeff Manor because we have no cost there. And I know Lyman added some, but this is on the record, so we're gonna strike those. It's whatever you're looking at. I would make a motion that we approve, based on those two amendments, we approve the bills that are listed for payment upon the establishment of our account.
That's helpful to me. Thank you.
Second,
For payment, what was the rest of that?
With the, until our account's established, payment upon the establishment of our account.
Okay.
see, I told you, he's pretty slick on that, wasn't
Well, I'm really glad I asked you because
he? I won't lead you wrong, son.
I appreciate that.
I might take my time telling you the truth, but I'll always
Okay.
tell you the truth.
Boz, made the motion approved or seconded by, Joe Zerflu. Discussion.
Eric, just make sure you send a copy out, which ones are being approved and which ones aren't. At some point, I assume, as treasurer, I will issue payment to all of these, and then some of the payments will be to myself, so I just want to be clear which ones are approved and which ones we'll approve at a future meeting.
Yeah, and so when that happens, that check, I will be signing that check.
Yep.
To
You really
you.
don't have to, because the board approved him as treasurer, but I can see
Just
why.
for optics, I want to be clear, and if ever there was something that was paid to me, I don't want to sign that check.
When I was secretary treasurer for the fire department, the chief and I signed all
Yeah,
checks.
we do have two, so we'll get two stamps. That's a future expense. We need to get two stamps because you and Diane have stamps. So we'll do the same for here, so. Yeah.
You might want to wait till the annual meeting.
Well, that's true.
I
Wait,
get too excited.
We'll wait for that.
No matter the age, I get a kick out of these new politicians. They want to do everything just right, you know? 5 years from now, you know, what the heck.
Well, no, we just spent 45 minutes talking about that for these classifications, right? So we'll be around though, so you'll be able to. Get 9, citizen comments on the agenda items or new topics. Ms. Waters.
Yes, again, Tammy Waters with Domtar. I know in talking to Jason this morning, one of the things, and again, y'all might have talked about it on a call I've been on, but I don't always hear really good on Zoom, so my apologies. But I know early on we had discussions and you guys approached Domtar. There was a lot of talk around the bylaws, that this initial committee would be focused on that.
Yes.
Is that going to happen, or what did y'all decide on that piece?
About bylaws and so forth.
And I
Yeah.
understand that we have to comply with chapter 33, so based on my research and talking a little bit with, I think it was Eric, he was trying to explain that a lot don't, some don't do it, but many do bylaws, so.
Well, I don't know if we'll call them bylaws per se. I think with Eric, lake associations have bylaws per se, but we do need to put some of those things in writing. I'm hesitant, but you can convince me otherwise to do that as an initial board until the actual go forward board is done in August.
I guess the only reason I raised it, and looking, they had an example on that page, there's a document that y'all went through in training, I can't remember the name of it. But it was a lot of that sample bylaws that he has on his page was really a lot about the membership and how it be the structure. So it just, and that, because of that, I thought, well, it really would make sense to do that before you have it in place.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think that example in the guide is for lake associations who don't have a state statute to follow, so they write their own bylaws. But let's look into that and validate that. So let's bring that up about the bylaws thing, about if it's needed. And if so, what would be included in that? So thank
And I
you
will
for that.
say that, I mean, please, I mean, Domtar is willing to assist. I mean, we have resources, whether it be from the PR side, from the legal side, from the, environmental side. I mean, we're glad to help any way we can. So, I mean, it's always not always easy for me to communicate over that, but I just want to put that on the table that, we would much rather be at the table. We want to be a partner, as you referenced earlier. I mean, I don't think it's any secret. Our main concern in the long haul is knowing what kind of chemicals that could impact the water, not only for you guys, but for us as well. So I think we're all on the same page on that. So I'd rather have everything lined out. I always think about bylaws is more of a long term, because we're all in agreement here now and have this discussion, but 5 or 10 years from now, the table could look different.
Yeah, I hear you. And we're in that unique position where we do have an entity such as Domtar on the lake. So something, whether it's called bylaws or whatever, needs to be memorialized in that regard. And frankly, for me, as we're doing that, I really appreciate the offer. That's a no-brainer for me and a given that we would sit down at the table with Domtar, and I would invite actually DNR to join us in that conversation because we have shared interests as well. And in some cases, they're the approving authority of certain things, and
Sure,
we
and
want to make sure we have knowledge and understanding about that as well. So that's a great point. Thank you.
and I'll look forward to that. That'll be great. Give
Great,
me a reason to come back to your great state.
Thank you very much.
So for the record, Tammy wants to learn about ice fishing.
I know, right?
You really do?
I would have had that in Arkansas.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Maybe Lyman or myself could even
I'll look forward to it.
have you learn close to our properties.
Okay, we
All
won't
right.
tell my husband till after I do it because he'll be so jealous.
right.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. Any other?
Eric, I would like to add to this, Tammy, and really background for everybody. When we were in the formative stages of the Lake District, we got input on this topic from what I would consider to be two strong experts on the need for bylaws. One is a attorney named Mary, I'm going to say her name wrong, Pertnu. She's from a law firm in Madison, but she was part of writing Chapter 33. And the second expert is, I think everybody is aware of an individual named Eric Olson. Eric is with UW Stevens Point. He's kind of considered the expert on lake associations, lake districts. Both of those individuals highly discourage us from writing separate bylaws unless it was absolutely necessary, because the statute should govern it, and most government bodies that are operating by statute don't have separate bylaws. We can do it, Tammy, and we may decide to, but we were discouraged and being careful because a lot of people that write bylaws end up conflicting with the statute. And then if it ever goes to court, it gets messy. So for what it's worth, I'm just adding that. I'm not fighting it. I'm just giving you some advice that we heard during the formative stages of the district.
Hence my point about whatever we call it, we need to have.
Right. And Eric's actually the one I spoke to. So he was explaining, I understand some do and some don't. And I don't think it needs to be complicated by any means, but I think whatever that document looks like to make sure we have it all covered would be great.
I agree with that concept, and we'll
And we appreciate
yeah,
that.
they make that happen. Comments, number 10, comments from board members.
Nothing.
Yeah, so you're all commented out today.
My only comment is a question, and I'm bringing it up now so that we're prepared before the annual meeting. Not sure what happened with the mailing for the special meeting, but there were a number of folks in the meeting voiced their concern that they did not get a mailing. I can tell you that Domtar did not get a mailing, which surprised me because when the initial petition came through, it did show up. So I think we need to figure out what happened. Did we not have the right list? Was the postal service? I still have, if it was the postal service was slow, I should still get something.
Sure.
So my concern is, did we get it out to everybody that should have gotten one? And just listening to the folks in the special meeting, it sounds like we did not.
So we'll have to consolidate. I think there are 3 different mailing lists at this point, if not more, and we'll consolidate them and get them in order. Hopefully we would get everybody other than properties that have changed hands that haven't been identified legally in Wood County, which happens from time to time. But yeah, we have to consolidate those and get that.
It just seemed odd, that we didn't change hands, at least we didn't change hands, did we?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were one of them, and there was just.
Understood that. I was unaware of that and
So just wanted to bring that up,
sure.
make sure that we're.
Well, I'm certainly glad you and Mr. Tim were able to come without the announcement. That's great.
On the email announcement, but I may have known because of the meetings we have here.
That's possible. Okay, any other comments? So we've got some business items for next meeting. Do you have those down pretty much, Buzz? Or do we have to list them?
I caught them as we went, unless you want to review. I mean, I got the budget 2024 draft. I got, we're gonna bring back this, district definitions. Version 3. A draft of the economic development grant should be presented before submission to the county. That's next meeting. And update on bills that were missed on this one. That's the only big ones I'm tracking, unless you, something else. Is there another one?
And
Yeah,
I
that's-
intend to submit I'll review the budget, Boz.
Yeah, I got 2024 budget draft to us.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, that's it. I would, to Tammy's point, and we discussed it, we established back in May, these, committees. We have organizational logistics, we call it.
Yeah,
I think bylaw discussion would fall into there, and it does have citizens, the Lake District volunteer on that committee. It does have me and you as well. I think we need to expand it. What I would offer is that we refer the bylaw discussion to that group, let them put some thoughts and then bring that back to us. We can't do everything. Let's start making these other folks do some stuff. So I would refer that discussion and then they bring something back to us that we can look at.
thank you. Hearing no further comments, without objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me,
We don't have our next meeting date set.
we don't have our next meeting.
Then I
Thank
would
you very much.
Highly suggest that we have it the week of July 10th to avoid the 4th of July, the week before. And Boz, last official work day, well, he's on the clock for another month, but you know, playing golf with
What the
Florida.
heck?
Yes.
So if we could have it sometime during that week, like maybe July 10th.
10th is a Monday, 10 through 14 is that week, 10th to Monday.
Tenth is our normal, Monday's our normal.
Right.
Do it for 10th.
10 to 1 o'clock?
I think we should have it at 3 o'clock on the 14th, but I'll concede.
So we doing 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock?
10 o'clock at 3. 10.
10 o'clock on the 3rd?
3.
Okay.
We good with that?
Thank you, that's very kind of you not to object to
3
my.
o'clock on the 10th.
objection.
3 o'clock? Where are you gonna be up to that time, sir?
We work.
What, are you leaving us, Buzz?
I am serious, sir.
What in the heck? You're not old enough to retire.
I know.
Four
It
plus
ain't
weeks
retired, I'm
again.
sorry, that ain't it.
So I didn't hear the time again,
On the 10th of July, which is a Monday at 3 o'clock.
at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
All right, now, without further objection, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 2:22. Thank you very much, everybody.
I'm glad you didn't go for 10